What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be covering how the shift being banned in 2023 could possibly affect some of the players on the Rangers, as well as how often they had the shift used against them in 2022. Now, you might have seen I had this part up here highlighted, but we need to talk about the statistic weighted on base average, or sometimes referred to as WOBA. This is effectively a version of on-base percentage that factors in how a player reached base. And the reason we need to talk about this is because the page I have pulled up for shifts uses that statistic when referring to the effect of the shift. So we'll get into that in a second. But the example that they provided here was in 2014, a home run was worth about 2 times on base, and a walk was worth about half a time on base. And the formula for that is down here. That is all beyond me. But it simply comes down to, hitting a home run should not be worth the same as drawing a walk or getting hit by a pitch. Because, you did reach base, but in 2 very different ways. So I don't look at this stat that often. I had heard of it before, and this was the most simple explanation I could find from MLB's official website. So I'll have this link below if you want to dive into this a little more, as well as some of the other advanced stats that they have on here. That's effectively what it comes down to, is putting some weight, as the name implies, behind the way that you got on base. So with that being said, let's dive into the Baseball Savant page here. Huge shout out to them for compiling these kinds of pages and statistics for absolutely free. So go check them out if you haven't. I've used their website in multiple videos before when doing some deep dives like this. Definitely go check them out if you haven't already. But diving into this here, there are a couple big things to look at. One is the league average just for 2022. The shift was used about 33% of the time, so almost exactly a third of the time on any given plate appearance you would see a shift. Now, they define the shift in this scenario as when 3 or more infielders are on the same side of second base. And I assume that is also MLB's definition of it, considering they are, the ones implementing this ban next year. Most interestingly, or maybe not interestingly, is it was more than half the time against left-handed hitters, which, if you look at the top 4 Rangers hitters that were shifted the most, they are all lefties. Makes the most sense. Just looking straight into it, I wanted to start with Corey Seeger, because Cole Calhoun is no longer on the team, but he was shifted the most in 424 plate appearances. 396 of them the shift was on, and you'll see that weighted on base average jumps from 255 to 339. So maybe next year Cole Calhoun has another all-star season like he's had in the past, right? I mean, that is a huge difference. It's almost 100 points there. But the big focus I wanted to look at was Corey Seager, because he is on the team and he's going to be here for a while. So this could be a career-changing thing for Corey Seager if the shift cannot be implemented. This is cool here too. This is the kind of the hot zone of where he was fielded the most, and it looks like literally no times were they ever standing on third base when Corey Seager was up. It was not your traditional 4-man outfield. They were almost always on that right side of second base, and whoever would have been covering the left side was barely standing past second base, sometimes at short. So for him, it was 92.8% of the time, and his weighted on base average, this was when he was not shifted, I should point that out, is the difference. It goes from 326 to 397, which is pretty good. Once again, I wasn't sure why they used weighted on base average. I'm kind of curious to see batting average. I know that it doesn't weigh the same as why they were using this, but I'm just curious to see that. So interestingly enough, His goes from 326 to almost 400. Just a mere 7.2% of his plate appearances did they not have this traditional shift on. So next on here is Brad Miller, which I think he still is on the team. This I thought was pretty funny. Doesn't change at all. He's just that consistent. It did not change even a 100th of a point with Brad Miller. So that was interesting. And then Jonah Heim, who is technically a switch hitter. I guess he had the majority of his at-bats lefty is why they have him here. 263 to 344. He was already pretty good offensively behind the plate there as a catcher. So very curious to see what he can do next year. And then Marcus Semien, who played in every game last year except for one. He was shifted just about 3/4 of the time. 316 weighted on base and doesn't go up much more when he wasn't shifted. So once again, Marcus Semien, a little better than people maybe gave him credit for because of how poorly he started the year. Someone who they're very much looking forward to, Mitch Garver, his weighted on base average actually went down when he wasn't shifted. So I don't know what to make of that one. And looking at a couple other players here, Josh Smith was about 50-50 on the shift, and his also went down when the shift was not on. So I think maybe some of that has to do with the approach that some players take when the shift is on, because ideally you want to hit it the other way. It's easy to say that, but that's what you want to do, right? A lot harder to actually do it. And maybe some players, when the shift is on, they're just in that different mindset versus when it's off, they're like, okay, I got to, try to hit it in a gap in the outfield or this or that. So that's the only thing I can assume. But going down when the shift is not on is interesting. Garcia was actually not shifted all that often, probably because he hits the ball 500 feet most of the time. So you can't put a shift on that. And small amount of plate appearances, but Steele Walker in his brief time in the majors was not shifted 81% of the time, and his weighted on base average went down. The last notable player to look at here, or who will be playing a lot, well, there's two. I skipped over Josh Young. Not shifted all that often, and his is pretty steady. Leote does way better when the shift is off, which is good news for Texas because they want him to play a lot more. And then Sam Huff, also pretty consistent. He was good in his at-bats he had with Texas, but between, Heim being there and then all of a sudden Nathaniel Lowe being a literal silver slugger, it just didn't matter. He is one who is particularly good at hitting it the opposite way, and I think that's why he was only shifted 18% of the time. Let's take a look at some of these charts, though. I kind of forgot they can do that. So I'm assuming this is okay. Yeah, so this is just the general defensive positioning, but he is incredible at hitting it the other way. So I don't think they would have been smart to shift him that much. 381 weighted on base when the shift is not on. And, okay. I didn't even notice this. So they actually split Jonah Heim's at-bats or plate appearances based on what side he was hitting. That's interesting. So when he was hitting lefty, he was shifted almost 80% of the time. And as a righty, they only shifted him about 10% of the time. 542 weighted on base when he was hitting as a righty with the shift on. I think he hit a lot more home runs as a righty. I don't actually know that, but he is pretty good, man. He's going to be exciting to watch next year. Bubba Thompson, who could be getting some more playing time depending on if Texas gets anyone in left field, far better when the shift is not on, and they didn't shift him that much. I feel like the only times they would have Yeah, so the only times they probably would have been when he was bunting, which he did a lot. And then not a lot of plate appearances, but Nick Solak in his 4 plate appearances where they did shift him, .911 weighted on base. I forgot Leote is also a switch hitter, so he never was shifted as a righty. Literally not even 1 plate appearance, and he had a 286 weighted on base. So that's interesting that they split that up, though. I suppose it makes sense, but I didn't even think about that. So that was just a lot of me rambling a little bit there about these numbers. But the consensus is, I think, in most cases for the main guys in the lineup, let's sort by total plate appearances. I think in a lot of these guys' cases, it will benefit them a lot, and that's interesting. Simeon and Garcia, pretty much identical charts there, but in a lot of these cases, it's going to go up. For Corey, it's going to go up. For Lowe, it's going to go up, which is insane because he was already hitting 300 this past season. Jonah Heim, it will go up at least when he's a lefty, and he was benefiting from it as a righty. Leote, it's going to go up. I mean, Marcus Semien, it's going to stay pretty steady, but it could also go up. So it's very interesting to see how this affects the players. But teams will have to adjust their strategies, and I've been wondering how that will actually play out. The last thing I did want to show here in this video was this quick montage of Corey Seeger getting robbed of hits effectively. Not all of them were super hard hit balls, but these technically would have been hits in 2023. So I wanted to show this. This was put together by Mike Petrello, who is one of the he's a news writer. I forgot for which website, and I also think I butchered his name, so I apologize. But this was posted to the Rangers MLB.com video page, so I think he actually just is a writer for MLB. So there's one hit. That would be a hit next year. This one would be a hit next year. And there's one example here. I think it's this clip where he just absolutely smokes this thing. And a great play out there, but that would for sure be a hit next year. And there's a few more examples of just him kind of dribbling the ball. I mean, he's putting it where it would be a hit normally. But as you can see, he does this a lot, so they know that. And next year, you won't be able to do a darn thing about that. It comes into more play when it's a situation like this with runners on. So this was against Valdez, and there's runners on, and that makes a difference. So I'll have links to the definition of weighted on base average, as well as this Baseball Savant page I was using, in the description. Let me know how y'all feel about the shift being banned. Did you like it? Did you hate it? I might have to dive into one about maybe if they have the numbers for pitchers, how they performed when the shift was on. That could be an interesting one. Don't know if that exists, but I'll look into that. So appreciate y'all watching, though. Hopefully we hear some more news soon, just about anything, because it's been a little quiet. Maybe Chris Young's up to something. Who knows? But I will talk to y'all later.